good morning to you. Thank you for joining me if you're joining me live. Thank you for joining me if you're joining me on catch up. Obviously, if you're here live, then please do comment and join in. Love to have responses from you. And if you're watching on catch up, if you have any questions, then by all means message me afterwards. If you've got any questions about the products I've used or how I've created anything, then just give me a shout. So I'm carrying on with using the Flowering Blooms stamp set, this one here. And this is what I've been using so far this week. So on Monday I created this this card here. I created a stepped out version, but that's already been sent to somebody. So this was using the main image, stamped in early espresso and then coloured in with blends pens. This is Mango Melody. And then one that I've created beforehand just to try it out was this one here. Again, stamped in early espresso, but this time coloured in with Magenta Madness with the blends pens. Added a little bit of decoration on there. Also stamped the envelope with one of the other images from the stamp set. So that was Monday. Yesterday I stepped it up slightly. I used a different image here, the flowers, and then what I did was I used a stitching die from our new die cutting machine. This actually comes from the Stitched Leaves dies, which is my class in a box this month. And I stamped beforehand and then ran it through the machine to get that stitched effect. And then I stamped and did some masking here and coloured these in, and this colour here is Poppy Parade. So today I thought I would go muted colours but step it up a little bit more. Morning, Tracy, Carol, it is hot. Hi Verity, Yuta, Moretta, thank you so much for joining me and saying hi. So what I'm going to do today is use our new die cutting machine and step it up to this version, which is still the single image, because I do love that image. But what I've done is I put it through a complete embossing folder to get that textile effect. And then I've used one of our sets of word dies to create the sentiment rather than stamping. Now the colours for this are Petal Pink and Grey Granite and Very Vanilla. So for those of you that know me, not early espresso in sight. So I'm going to recreate this from scratch. I have cut the layers out ready for you. Let me pop that to one side. So I've got a standard Grey Granite card base. I've got a Petal Pink layer, which is 1/2 centimetre smaller, and then a Whisper White layer, which is 1/2 centimetre smaller again. Okay, giving me a sort of 1/4 centimetre all the way round. I've got a spare one in case I mess it up, and I have one for the inside of the card as well. So hopefully we won't need that one, but you never know. So I'm going to start with the stamping and colouring, and then I'll step up and do the extra work with the die cutting machine. Hi Abby. So I am, in order to show you the die cutting machine, I'm going to lift my camera up. Hopefully that's going to work. So we'll give it a go. We will see. So I'm just going to stamp this sentiment of this image first. So all the work is done for you. As I said, this would make a lovely sympathy card. you know, just in a very pale colour, or even just left in grey. So I'm using grey granite, inking up my image stamp, just inking it all the way over, like so, and I'm going to pop that fairly high up because I want space for my ribbon and my sentiment. So I'm using one of the larger blocks. So if you struggle to hold the blocks, you could use a Stamparatus or a stamping platform. There it is there. Let me wipe that down. I'm going to stamp one for the inside while I'm here, just in this little corner. Let me grab a piece of grid paper. So we didn't get any storms last night. I know quite a few of you did. For us, I heard thunder. I didn't see any lightning. I just heard the thunder in the distance, but I know quite a few. I know, Moretta, you had a storm, didn't you? And you're only sort of 10 miles away from me. So let's pop this in the corner here. So I'm choosing grey granite ink. I could use smoky slate. That would be quite effective. I like grey granite because it's got a hint of brown in it, so it's just a little bit more natural. I'm just going to do one in this top corner as well, so I've got one on either side. Okay, and what I could do for the inside is I could actually stamp that off so it's a lighter colour, or I could stamp it in a lighter colour, but I'm happy with that as is. It's such a pretty stamp. So that's going to be my inside. Oh, lightning and thunder for you, Rita, but nothing to write home about. So I'm just going to colour this in really quickly, and because I've got Petal Pink card, I'm using Petal Pink blends pens, and surprise surprise, I have Petal Pink ribbon to go with it. That's one thing that Stampin' Up is really good at, is the product colour coordination. So if you like a set of colours, you'll find that you can get the card, you can get the matching patterned paper, you can get the ribbon, the pens, the ink, all to match. And that makes a real difference, especially when you're starting out, because one of the problems is, you know, what do you do with colours, what goes together? And Stampin' Up are very good at that. And we have some different colour families, so that if you really are struggling, you can, if you choose anything within a given colour family, then you'll find that works together. And also throughout our catalogue, they give you the names of the colours that they've used in the samples. So I'm just using the darker Petal Pink pen, my blends pen here, for the darker areas. So as I say, all of the work has been done for you. Thank you, Stampin' Up illustrators, because all I'm doing is just following their shading. Now I know a lot of my talented customers and team are very good artists, and they'd know exactly where to colour to get the shading, but I'm certainly no expert on that. Yeah, yes, it's funny, Yuta and Verity are both saying that's why they joined. And interestingly enough, it is also in a related way why I joined. So I joined 10 years ago, and I'm sorry if you've heard this already. And I made cards to sell, and I did commissioned cards. But what I found was a problem getting the same colour of card. So I was buying on eBay and places like that, and in the local craft stores. But if I wanted to get that same colour 2 months later, because I had some more cards to do, I couldn't get it. And one thing I liked about Stampin' Up is that obviously once you'd got the colours in the catalogue, you've got them for the whole year, if not longer. Okay, so I'm just doing a little bit with the green, and I'm not doing it in great detail because we're going to put it through the embossing folder in a minute, and that is going to just give us some extra texture, but it will take away a little of the detail in exchange. There we go. So basically I've recreated that element of this design. So what I'm going to do now is pop this through the embossing folder, I'll show you the new machine, and put it through this textile embossing folder that makes it look like fabric. We have a couple that are very subtle, and then we have obviously some really geometric designs as well, so it depends on the effect that you're looking for. Let me put this to one side for the minute, make some space for the machine. Hello Linda, good morning. So let me bring the machine up here. So obviously if you have an existing die cutting machine, this may not be of interest to you or relevant to you. I'm just going to lift my camera up a little, just so that it's not so much in your face, you can actually see the whole thing. So if you have an existing die cutting machine, this may not be relevant until such time as you come perhaps to replace it. So a die cutting machine is designed to cut images over and over again using metal dies, and these are very fine dies. Let's see if I can find one for you. This is the one that I used yesterday. So this just has stitching on it, and it's raised. Now it's so fine I don't think you'll see that in the camera, but if you run your finger over it you can feel it. So these stitching pieces are 90 degrees to the plate. So what happens is as you put it through, it gets put through effectively like a mangle. Goes through, the plate pushes this into your card, and it creates the design. And it's the same design over and over again, and these dies should last forever. Okay, unless you do something bizarre with them or unless you bend them. So they're quite thin metal, but they're quite sturdy. So this is the new machine. So it has a carrying handle, and that also acts as your handle when you're winding things through. So it is a manual die cutting machine. You can get automatic ones that have electric motors in them, but this one is as is. Morning Pauline. Hi Carol with an E. Oh, petite petals. Oh, because of the punch, yes. Yes, in those days we didn't have die cutting machines, did we? So that sounded like that was years ago. Sorry, Verity. Alright, so these platforms fold down flat, okay, and you can hear that go, and it sits really nicely on my work surface. Oops, this is a cupboard. And what happens is there's some rollers in here, top and bottom, and we create a sandwich and push it through and we wind it through. So the instructions are on each of the plates. Now this is probably too close to the camera, but basically it tells you what to do with thin dies, what to do with embossing folders. So we're going to be using both of those. To start with, we're going to be using an embossing folder. So we need this number 1 plate, so it shows you number 1, and a number 4 plate. So I'm just going to put that on there. This is my number 4 plate. I'm just going to pop that on top for the minute. And then this is my embossing folder. So I've put the label on there to remind me what the number is, if anybody wants to order it, and what its name is. Some of them I remember them, some of them I don't. So I'm going to take my stamped card, pop it in my embossing folder. Now this texture is quite, what's the word, sort of an all over texture. But if it was a very specific design, so like a diagonal stripe or leaves or anything else like that, you'd need to make sure that it was facing the right direction. Okay, this one, it really doesn't matter. Okay, my recommendation is always to have the Stampin' Up logo on the top, and that will give you the best effect. But sometimes you can, if you want to, use the debossed side, and in which case you can put it in this way round. Okay, we have the hinge at the top, and what we're going to do is place that onto the plate. There's plenty of space there. Put our number 4 plate on top, move the whole thing towards the center, and then just wind it through. Okay, like that. Now you only need to wind it through once. Okay, if you had a really thick piece of card, you could wind it through and then wind it back if you wanted to. Let me just move this out of the way for the moment. I'll bring it back in a second. So here is my design with that texture on it. So this is the plain card, so it makes it look very different. Makes it look almost like the texture of a fabric or watercolor paper, for example. Okay, so that's going to be my front layer. The next thing I'm going to do is cut my label. So on this one here I have the word friend. I'm going to use the word thanks for this one that I'm doing now. And this is from a set of dies that has lots of different words. There's no point me showing you the dies because you can't really, you can see some of the words, but the one I'm using is called Well Written. It's on page 183 of the catalogue. Let's move it out of the light. So it has welcome, thanks, miss you, happy, wishes, birthday, love, hooray, bride, baby, groom, sympathy and friend. And then you also get a little butterfly, a bird, a little swirl, exclamation mark, a little flower, a couple of little flowers, and as I say, this set of leaves here. And these are all individual dies, so there's 24 dies in total. This is the thanks. If I just put it against this one. So if I turn it over, for any of you who haven't seen a die cutting machine die up close, so again this is the metal piece here that comes out at 90 degrees, and when you press it onto the card it cuts through it. So what I'm going to do is do that on the grey granite piece of card. Thank you, Verity. So I have a scrap piece of grey granite, and to make life easier, because this is going to be quite small in terms of gluing it down, we have these self-adhesive sheets. So this is a sheet of double-sided sticky tape, for want of a better description. And what it's going to allow me to do is cut through the card and the sticky backing, and then when I come to put it down, all I need to do is remove this backing and it's ready to go. Okay, so it will become a bit clearer when I pop it through. So all I'm making sure I'm doing is I pre-stuck this on beforehand, so I'm just going to make sure that when I put my die on my card, it's obviously in the sticky area. So let me bring the machine back. Here we go. So I left it open, ready. And for just straightforward die cutting, we have our number 1 plate, a number 2 plate. So this is to bring the thickness together. And then we have 2 cutting plates. Now these are both number 3. You can see this one has been cut into quite a bit already. This is the one that I put on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sandwich my piece of paper and my die, whoops, between those two, and then I'm going to roll it through. So let me just do that without holding it all up in the air. So one thing I like about our new die cutting machine compared to our previous one is that there's a little bit of space on either side of this plate, which means if you've got something that's quite close to the edge, it's not going to get crumpled in the side. And it also sort of channels everything into this piece here. So there's my thanks going on there. And I recommend that you don't put it in sideways, that you put it in at its smallest point, or at least at an angle. And that's so you're not exerting too much pressure on the rollers at any one time. So I'm just popping the plate on the top, and I'm going to wind that through. Okay, like that. So I only have to wind it through once. I'll bring this out the back. I'll take the machine out of the way. Yeah, so much easier with the sheet user, that's for sure. Okay, so now I've got my thanks. There's my die. Here's my sentiment. And see how cleanly that comes out. And then obviously it's got some little holes in here where these sections will come out to make the letters look right. If I put it down there, you can see. So I'm just going to take these little bits out, and so you can use a pokey tool for that, or you can use the edge of the die. So if you don't have a tool to hand, just use the point of a die and poke it through. Basically you want something sort of slim, so this end here would work perfectly. And I've got the sticky on the back where the white is. That's the sticky bit, so we're going to use that to stick down. So that's a little bit of an introduction to our new die cutting machine. Oh, the stitch yesterday, Moretta, was from Stitch Leaves, in the new autumn winter catalogue. This one here. And I used it because I did this card for our class in a box this month. And it creates all of this lovely stitch leaves, but this is what I wanted to recreate for our card yesterday. So that's from the Stitch Leaves stamp set as well. Okay. I might bring this back down a little bit, just to show you in a little bit closer. Okay, so these are my components. I've got my thanks that's going to go here at the bottom, and this is going to be layered onto this card. This is for the inside, and that's going to be my outside card. So I've got a couple of things to do with this. First thing I'm going to do is add some ribbon, because we do have that lovely petal pink ribbon, which is here. So again, another example of the coordination. So pretty, isn't it? So what I'm going to do is do that first, unroll a little bit of this. So you can find our ribbons scattered through the catalogue, but there is a set of pages that feature all of the ribbons in both the main catalogue and the autumn winter one. So I'm just folding that round. I've left it on the reel, so I haven't cut it to size yet. And this ribbon does tie really nicely. If I can find my scissors. Oh yeah, the stitching die, Loretta, is from the Stitched Leaves. The one that goes with the Stitched Leaves stamp set in the autumn winter catalogue. There we go, not too much fussing actually with that. I do want it a little bit smaller. And what you could also do for this is use white ribbon and colour it with the blends pen. So if you didn't have this colour ribbon to hand, or you only wanted a tiny little bit, you could just grab some white ribbon and your petal pink pen. So I'll just show you that very quickly. I've got some white ribbon. I wanted to use the satin one, which was, but hadn't got any open. So I'll use this pretty polka dot ribbon, which is pretty in its own right, to be honest. So what you can do is take your blends pen. If I do it on a little bit that you can actually see, and then just run it over the ribbon. To change the colour. Okay, that's the dark one, and then this is the light one. So this has obviously got little bobbles on it, which is picking up the pen really nicely. So there you go. You could swap it for that. However, I do have that lovely petal pink ribbon. Yes, I do like the polka dot, although I have to say I struggle sometimes getting it to go into a bow because the dots get in the way a little bit. Okay, so I'm happy with that as it is, and because I've wrapped this round, I can move this up or down like I was doing on Monday. I'm happy with that as it is. My little thanks is going to go here in the bottom. So all I need to do is just peel off the backing. Usually comes off fairly well, and you can either peel the whole thing off, or sometimes what I like to do is just do a part of it. It's a bit like the peel-offs that many of us use when we start, or if you don't have a die cutting machine. So what I want to do is position that like so, and then peel off the rest, so that you're not, especially if you've got a long word, you don't want to sort of stretch it, so that way you can just let it come down, and that works really nicely. And I'll tell you why it works particularly well in a second. So that is going to go onto there, so I'm just going to use some wet glue. So just a scribble of that all the way over. Just put a little bit on the ribbon as well, just so that that's nice and secure. This is going on the Petal Pink layer, which, as I say, is 1/2 centimetre bigger, like so. That's going to go onto my grey granite layer. Like so. Whew. Ready for a cold drink this morning. Okay, like that. And then this one is going to go inside, so I'm going to leave that plain. I could colour it in, but I do quite like to have it plain on the inside, just as a contrast. I've got the larger flower here on the right. There we go. And also I could stamp the envelope as well. Now, one thing that makes this card work is the rule of threes. And that's because I've got Petal Pink once, twice, 3 times, and I've got Grey Granite once, twice, 3 times. And I don't know, well, I do know why it is, but it's difficult to explain. But in nature and things like that, there's usually odd numbers, or you'll see things in sets of 3s or 5s. And that's because if you have even numbers, your brain is always trying to even those 2 up. So if you have 2 and they're, you know, at a different angle, they're offset, it's trying to balance those. Whereas if you have 3, it knows it can't balance it. I'm sure this is a somewhat more technical and better description of that. But that's why if you're struggling with something and it looks too heavy on one item, just check and see that you've got equal numbers. So 3 of those and 3 of those. So that's my technical speak for today. Love pink and grey. Can't go wrong with it, can you? So just to show you that working, so this one I have, and I've got multiple flowers. I've got 2 reds, this one and this one. Okay, in here I've got Mango Melody, it's actually Bumblebee, and Mango Melody. And to me, this is much more balanced. I know it's a completely different set of cards, and you know, this has got masking and everything else, but this to me is more balanced than this one, as is that one. So if you've done a card and you're thinking it just looks unbalanced, that might be why. So what I could do to balance this one up is add red gems. I didn't have any red gems, which is why they're the rhinestones, but what I could have done was actually coloured those in red with my red pen, and then I think that would be more balanced card It's just more pleasing to the eye. Okie dokie. Same with embellishments, absolutely. Yeah, rule of threes, nearly always. And that's why if I'm stamping things in a background, I always make sure that any sets of three are equidistant from each other when you're especially when you're stamping backgrounds. And I find that's the easiest way to make a background that is all over, but where you want it to look completely random, if that makes any sense. So any three items, you need to keep the same distance from each other. I'm just wondering if I've got a stamp I could show you that with. No, I haven't, but I'm sure you know exactly what I mean. Hi Claire, thanks for joining us. I'm afraid we're just wrapping up, but there we go. So that is, let me take these out of the way. So this is all the same stamp set. This is our stepped up version. I could add some bling actually. Why not? Let me see if I've got something petal pinky. I've certainly got these champagne rhinestones, which are almost a pink. These elegant faceted gems, that's got pink in it. So let's add those. Let's go for those ones. So these are lovely because you get like a faceted white, faceted pink, and then a clear. Just going to use these little smaller ones, 2 and 3. There we go. Finished card. So I hope you like it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you joined me later on, we did have a run through of our new Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So if you want to see that in action, by all means watch it on replay, which will be available fairly soon. As soon as I've done and dusted, it will take a minute to process and then be ready to roll. Yes, and photographers, if you think about, you know, photographers with skylines and things like that, you know, the rule of thirds goes right the way through nature, doesn't it? So, thanks Pauline, Verity, Utah, Carol with an E, Carol without an E, Moretta. Hopefully I've got everybody. Linda, if you're still here, thank you. Abby and Tracy. So there is our finished card. I hope you like it. And as I say, nice choice of colours. I really do like pink and grey together. A bit like I like pink and early espresso together. But I'm giving that a little break this week. So there we go. Thank you for joining me. I will be back tomorrow evening at 7 PM, as long as we're not in the middle of a thunderstorm and lose any power. So I do hope you're able to join me. I do have a newsletter coming out because there's lots of exciting things happening. So you should receive that later this afternoon. And if you're on my email list and haven't received it, or you're not on my list and would like to be, then just add a message to this Facebook or just comment somewhere and I'll get you added to my list for the latest news and information. Thank you so much for joining me today. Take care, look after yourselves, look after each other. Stay safe and keep crafting. Thank you, bye bye.